Okay, today's lineup is massive. Bitcoin just surged to 94,000 only one day before the Federal Reserve is expected to cut interest rates, a move traders have been anticipating for months. And yes, the timing is impacting markets aggressively. Binance just became the first crypto exchange in the world to secure a global license under Abu Dhabi's ADGM framework, a major regulatory milestone. In the United States, a federal banking regulator says traditional banks can now act as a crypto intermediaries, custody, settlement, and transaction facilitation included. SpaceX, ahead of what could become the largest IPO ever, reportedly holds around $300 million in Bitcoin on its balance sheet. And MicroStrategy is back with another headline-moving moment, nearly $1 billion in new Bitcoin purchases just last week. Let's get into each story. First, the move everyone's watching. Bitcoin rallied to 94,000, its highest level in weeks, as traders priced in a potential Fed rate cut expected today. The expectation alone has been pulling liquidity back into the market because lower rates typically push investors towards risk assets. The key details: institutional desks have been rotating back into Bitcoin futures and spot markets as bonds yields soften, the momentum as positioning ahead of macro catalysts, not retail hype. Why does this matter? Because we've been in an environment where monetary policy has dominated crypto behavior all year. When rate cuts gets priced in, liquidity loosens and assets like Bitcoin responds first. Also note that options market saw a surge in call buying targeting the $100,000 to $110,000 range, suggesting traders expect volatility to spike immediately after the Fed announcement. And the 24-hour volume spike confirms it. The move isn't thin or speculative, it's driven by macro alignment, rate expectations, ETF inflow stabilizing, and institutions stepping back in after weeks of caution. Next, Binance just achieved something the industry hasn't seen before. According to the Economic Times, Binance is now the first crypto exchange globally to secure a license under the Abu Dhabi Global Markets updated international regulatory framework. The ADGM license, known for being one of the most rigorous financials in the Middle East, allows Binance to operate as a fully regulated, globally recognized crypto trading and custody platform. This is not just a regional permit. ADGM's framework is used by multinational financial institutions, meaning Binance now has a regulatory anchor similar to how banks operate under cross-border permissions. The two key takeaways. Binance finally stabilizes regulatory standing after 2 years of global scrutiny. ADGM positions itself as a major global crypto hub, competing directly with Hong Kong, Singapore, and London. This license effectively opens doors to institutional clients across multiple jurisdictions that require recognized regulatory oversight. It's a major legitimization milestone, and the first time a crypto exchange has been granted this category of global approval. And it lands at a moment where jurisdictions worldwide are tightening standards, not loosening them. Now to the US, where Reuters reported a major shift in regulatory tone. A top US banking regulator stated that banks are allowed to act as crypto intermediaries, meaning they can custody assets, settle transactions, and process digital asset activities for customers, so long as they comply with supervisory expectations. This is a pivot from previous years where guidance was vague or restrictive. There's one critical point: the regulator did not introduce new rules. It clarified that the existing framework already permits banks to participate as long as they manage risk appropriately. That means banks can hold crypto for clients, banks can act as settlement agents for tokenized assets, banks can intermediate transactions between customers and exchanges. For institutions, this is huge. It lowers the friction that kept traditional finance on the sideline. And it immediately positions US banks to compete with crypto-native custodians, something that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. This move doesn't mean banks will rush into crypto overnight, but it removes the regulatory fog that held them back. The announcement aligns with broader US efforts to bring digital assets into mainstream financial infrastructure. Not by creating new laws, but by integrating them into existing supervisory systems. In other words, crypto is being absorbed into banking, not kept outside of it. SpaceX is preparing for what analysts expect to become the largest IPO in history, and CoinDesk reported that the company treasury includes roughly $300 million worth of Bitcoin. This is unusual for a space tech and satellite operator. Most industrial companies kept treasury risk low, cash, T-bills, short-term deposits. SpaceX holdings a substantial Bitcoin stock is a signal of two things. Crypto exposure is moving into real industrial balance sheets, not just fintech companies. The IPO projected for 2026 would bring a Bitcoin holding aerospace giant into public markets. CoinDesk noted that SpaceX had Bitcoin exposure for years, but this is the first time the scale has been reported alongside IPO preparation. For the market, this raises a few questions. How will regulators view a publicly traded aerospace company that holds a volatile digital asset? Will SpaceX stock inherit Bitcoin-driven volatility? And could this influence how other large private companies approach crypto treasuries? If the IPO proceeds on schedule, the public will effectively gain indirect exposure to SpaceX Bitcoin. That's unprecedented, a hybrid of space tech, industrial manufacturing, and crypto treasury management. And now, MicroStrategy. CoinDesk reported that MicroStrategy purchased nearly $1 billion worth of Bitcoin in a single week, marking one of the company's largest buying periods since 2021. The report highlighted several key points. MicroStrategy accumulated close to 14,000 Bitcoin during that week. The purchases were spread across several transactions. The company reaffirmed that Bitcoin remains its primary treasury reserve strategy. This buying spree happened while Bitcoin was retracing earlier this month, meaning MicroStrategy treated the dip as an opportunity, not a risk. Unlike past cycles where the company relied heavily on debt or convertible notes, that this round of purchases was funded more evenly, a mix of operating cash flow and previously secured financing. MicroStrategy now sits on one of the largest corporate Bitcoin holdings in the world, and every time it adds to its stack, it reinforces its identity as the publicly traded Bitcoin leveraged entity. This latest accumulation signals one thing: the company isn't slowing down. If anything, its conviction is intensifying. So here's what we just covered. Bitcoin surged to 94,000 ahead of a likely Fed rate cut. Binance secured a global regulatory license under ADGM, the first exchange to do so. The US banking sector received a green light to act as crypto intermediaries, ushering digital assets deeper into traditional finance. SpaceX, ahead of what could become the largest IPO ever, reportedly holds $300 million in Bitcoin. And MicroStrategy added nearly $1 billion in Bitcoin in just 1 week. No hype, these are the actual developments shaping crypto right now. The landscape is shifting through regulations, institutional adoption, and strategic treasury moves, not meme or noise. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.